Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 14th episode of Tech Talks with Santosh. And today we have a really special guest, Sajeetharan. So I met Sajeetharan last year at NG Sri Lanka, and now this is where we are, right? So we are actually after NG Sri Lanka, we are seeing each other for the first time. So more than a year, right, Saji?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So let me just introduce Saji quickly. So Saji has like more than 11 years of experience in IT industry, and he is working as a cloud solution architect for Microsoft. For a which region is that? APAC, right? So we call it as
Yeah,
a Asia Pacific. Yeah, APAC region, and he's like really skilled in web application architecture, cloud, and more. At the skills actually has led him to be a Microsoft MVP as well as GD, and he was the first GD from Sri Lanka. So that's really cool. And he's also like top 20 contributors in the world on Stack Overflow for Angular, Azure, and multiple technologies. And apart from, he is also a technical reviewer, so he keeps reviewing multiple books, and he shares his knowledge via open source projects, by mentoring, creating POCs, and running workshops. He also writes blog posts, and recently he was awarded as top educator in technology by Hacker Noon 2020. So that's really great. And in case you have any questions related to web development or anything related to cloud, I think he loves to contribute to the cloud. So you can always reach out to him. I'll share his Twitter handle and LinkedIn handle, and you can always connect with him. Really nice guy. You can always ask him questions. He will not say no, I think.
Hey, thanks for
Thank you,
those. Yeah. Thanks for
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting to be a part of this discussion. Right. It's great to catch up to you again because we have been, trolling each other on Twitter, and also we used to have fun. Jokes apart. Jokes apart. Before we proceed, congrats on the amazing work you are doing to the community. I just want to emphasize on the fact to those who are watching, it's not about being successful with your profession. It's also about being purposeful to others, right? Giving something back to the communities makes others' life better, right? I believe that's what makes everyone successful. So you are a great example. I admire you for that, and kudos to you. Keep up the good work. Yeah, we can go ahead with the question. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Saji. I mean, of course, like you guys are the one who actually motivated me to do this. So so today's discussion is more about cloud, and we are going to discuss about multiple things which you can do in cloud. So it's more about cloud native apps. So let's start the discussion. So first question, Saji, what is cloud computing, and how does the journey to cloud look like? I mean, a lot of organization I have seen, they are earlier, right? Not now. I think earlier when cloud came first, a lot of organization, including mine, I would say, including mine, which where I was working in like 2014, 2015, they were really scared about migrating to cloud. So what's your thought on
Yeah.
this?
I think it's a great question to start with. Before I give my own version definition of cloud computing, let me explain in a simple concept for beginners who are watching, right? Assume you're owning a company and you need some computer to store your data and run your application. So you get a server room, which is huge, right? I mean, if you have to run multiple applications, instead of having to maintain all those servers, you can pay for someone else to do it. So there are public vendors like Microsoft, Google and AWS that offers this as a service. In addition to renting out their infrastructure, these public vendors also provide some services that you can pay and run your applications on their servers. So if I had to give my own definition of cloud computing, it's a delivery of on-demand computing services from applications to storage and processing power, typically over the internet, right? So when you think of why cloud, it offers so many benefits. So when you consider the first point that you mentioned, reduction of cost, so it helps the organizations to save money in terms of hardware, resources, and the operations that they need to undergo. And on the second thing, it gives you high security in different ways, right? With integrated offerings that each of the cloud vendor provides, because you have high security as the important priority for most of the cloud vendors, including Microsoft Azure. So there are a lot of compliances and standard provided by each of the vendors, which makes your application more secure. And also on the high speed and security and productivity, right? By offering the services that you can integrate with your application. Say, if you take Microsoft, we are a cloud developer company. We provide a
Mm-hmm.
lot of tools to develop your applications and so also publish the solution quickly to the market by using DevOps and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it provides the speed and productivity, and finally on the high availability with different data centers available and the SLA provided by the cloud vendor. It makes your application available for the end users always, right? With the
Yeah.
regular updates, the maintenance that you don't have to do. So these are some of the benefits that you can get from cloud computing. On the second
Mm-hmm.
part of the question that you asked, yes, we have seen. I mean, 2 years of digital transformation in the space of 6 months, especially during this COVID situation, right? There are companies who were very reluctant to move to cloud, now having the discussions of moving to cloud. I think everyone started thinking of digital transformation to cloud. If you take any organization, there are three type of applications that usually exist, right? One is the legacy applications, which are
Yeah.
usually monolithic, built as a
Mm-hmm.
single unit and with separate services and components. These apps are very tightly coupled, so these tend to have internal and external dependencies that impacts feasibility of the development and the agility that you can deliver things quickly. So also these applications takes a long delivery cycle, right? If you want to do something quicker, you can't do, because you need to
Mm-hmm.
search the
Yeah.
code and then find where the code relies, and then even if you want to apply some bug fixes, it's very hard. And the
Yeah.
second type of applications which are service oriented, I think most of us, since we have that 10 years of experience, we developed in a service oriented architecture, right?
Yeah.
It's built in a modularly using package, middleware, common services, and the
Right.
SOA architecture, which are used to be loosely coupled. And we use technologies like messaging and also queues to disintermediate
Mm-hmm.
applications. So these are the kind of second application where you can integrate monitoring. You can see the telemetries coming from different places. And the third type of applications are the cloud native applications, which is, I think, mainly mostly mostly the software vendors and also the customers who are really adapting to this particular type applications, which are built using the APIs and the SaaS offerings provided by the cloud vendor and independently scalable using the microservice architecture, are sort of distributed applications. I think you
Mm-hmm.
might be knowing about different tools like DevOps process, which are heavily cloud dependent, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
makes applications available quickly to the market. So all these applications which I talked about has to go through the journey, right? If you are planning to
Mm-hmm.
migrate some of the applications, you have
Right.
to go through the journey, right? So we have something called 5 Rs of rationalization, which talks about rehosting, refactoring, re-architecting,
Mm-hmm.
rebuilding, and then replacing the application. So you need to choose which applications have to be retired and which applications can be rehosted and which application can be refactored and moved to cloud, and which applications
Mm-hmm.
have to be rewritten completely in order to adapt to cloud. So that's how the journey of cloud applications would like in any typical organization. In order to have the digital transformation in a smoother manner, I think Microsoft came up with a collection of documentation, proven set of tools, implementation guidance, and the best
Mm-hmm.
practices that you can leverage, which is called the cloud adoption framework. If you do a search for cloud adoption framework, you will be able to see the number of steps that you need to go through in order to have that smooth migration to cloud, right? I think all the cloud vendors provide this cloud adoption
Mm-hmm.
framework. So if you are new to cloud, you can explore that and start your cloud journey with any of the cloud vendor, including Microsoft Azure. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So I can see a lot of, different vendors putting all the energy and effort to make sure that clients are easily able to migrate. I think when it started, right, the digital era started,
Correct.
the biggest problem was, I think, the push from vendors and knowledge, right? So they were like, okay, we have created our data centers. Now people will come back and ask us, okay, we need a server maybe. But there was not much information available. I think that was one of the biggest problem I could think of, because in my
Correct. I mean,
organization, yeah, so in my
yeah,
organization,
go ahead.
the biggest concern was data. So what do you think where we have reached now? So how
I
secure my
think
data is?
I think this is one of the main concern that most of the organizations have, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the organizations still think like storing data on prem is more secure than storing it in cloud. I think it depends on a lot of things, right? Storing data
Mhm.
just as it is not secure always. So, but cloud offers a lot of ways to secure your data. In most of the cases, the answer is yes. The cloud provides a security way to secure data, provided the customer and the cloud provider has shared set of responsibilities. So it comes from the vendor as well as the application provider. So if you are a uh, software provider, you need to take care of some of the best practices in order to provide best security practices to your application and also to store the data. I think each of the cloud vendor provides a lot of policies and standard. However, it's still up to you to adhere to the best practices when it comes to security. For instance, if you upload all your data on S3 buckets or Azure storage and set it to publicly available, then sorry, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to
exactly.
have the right policies. Who are the people can access that particular data? Set the right policies and makes your data safe. So if you do that, definitely it's better from your side. Though the cloud vendors take privacy and security seriously, you can have additional security policies on your side as well. There are multiple
Right.
ways to do this using the encryption which is provided by the cloud vendors, and making use of SSL, using the right access control, and make sure that your data storage has the GDPR policy in place, and there are 92 plus
Okay.
policies available. You need to adhere to those policies as well. So these are common ways of securing your data. So it's a common responsibility between cloud vendor as well as the application provider or the customer. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So let's move on to the next question. You mentioned cloud native, right? So what is cloud native and why we need cloud native apps at the first place?
Yeah, I think
Can
this
you
is
hear
one of the
me?
interesting questions.
Yeah.
So if you ask any cloud engineer whom you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you ask any cloud engineer to define the term cloud native, there's a good chance you will get different set of answers, right? As our CEO Satya Nadella mentioned, now every company is a software company. If you take companies like Uber in India, if you take Ola Cabs, even though they are different sort of service provider, they are heavily dependent on
Right.
software that they make, right? Where
Right.
customers are the ones relying on those software. So cloud native is the new paradigm of software development. For an
Mm-hmm.
application to be termed as cloud native, it has to be built in such a way that it can operate on any type of cloud. It could be public, it could be private, or it could be in hybrid mode, using specific methods which are specific to cloud, right? Cloud native is basically building the right set of APIs, which denotes exposing services as a lightweight APIs for easy integrations, packing your application as containers, which is an architectural approach to developing an application in a collective or modular way using the loosely coupled services, right? It's about building microservices, having the right architecture in place by providing chunks of modules separated by logic. And finally, with the things like DevOps, you will be able to provide agility to the application that you develop. So it's about building applications quickly to the market in a collaboratively way using the methods that are provided by each of the cloud. And some of the scenarios that you can consider cloud native to be used, such as application modernization in terms of business critical applications, and then delivery of SaaS application, which is multi-tenant based application, and also building an application which gets real-time telemetry from devices such as cars, smart buildings, and things like that. And then finally, the application serving geographically distributed users. So the application being accessed by different users from different parts of the world. So cloud native is all about changing the way we think about constructing critical business system. So cloud native systems are designed to embrace rapid change that you can think of, building large scale applications and building
Okay.
resilience application, right? But yeah, if you're looking for an official definition of cloud native application, you can go ahead and explore on the CNCF Foundation website, which is I think uh, which is defining all those attributes that I have explained right now. So applications have increasingly become more complex, and users are demanding more and more features, right? And
Yeah.
also they are I mean expecting lot more features to be developed in quick time with a zero downtime. So you might know like 79% of the customers who won't return to a slower website. So this is one of the facts that you can take into consideration when you are building cloud native applications. Even it could be a website, simple website. So on the question you asked about why do we need cloud native, right? It talks
Mm-hmm.
about three things. One is on the speed of innovation. It talks about reliability. It talks about security. So when you talk about speed of innovation, developers can create something quickly and actually see it with a transparent environment, with a feedback loop coming from their customer environment, so that they can fix the bugs quickly by having the monitoring tool, and then they can eliminate the risk of failure to avoid small admin tasks. Because when I was a developer, I used to spend like 40 days to fix a small bug, right? But this is not the case anymore. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah.
about being agile and also being able to deliver things quickly. So and the second thing is on the reliability. Application built with cloud native approach in mind, you can help you get the most out of the cloud vendor. So which means availability, reliance, resiliency, scalability, and then low latency. So these are some of the factors that
Mm-hmm.
the customers are looking at in terms of building cloud application. And on the final point, between agility and security, there should it should not be taken in the lighter way. It is one of the important things that we need to consider when we are building large scale applications. So with cloud native technologies, you can automate security checks, because each of the cloud vendor has their own way of automating security checks, so that you can immediately check what are the DOS attacks happening on your server, and then
Mm-hmm.
immediately escalate things quickly, and then run intelligent threat detection on your production environment, so that you will have a granular details on the attacks that is happening on your data, or so that you can avoid risks or vulnerabilities that is happening on your database and things like that. Um, and there are some key attributes that happens with cloud native applications. Usually it is packaged as a lightweight containers, and then
Mm-hmm.
it is developed with best breed of languages and frameworks. So developers have the flexibility to choose their own languages in terms of building microservice applications, and also to deploy things quicker to the market. And also these applications are designed as loosely coupled microservices, so that each of the developer can focus on what they need to build, rather than focusing on their environment to set up the environment and things like that. And then finally, the automation capability. So you can cloud native applications can be highly automated with the DevOps tools that is provided by each of the cloud vendor. And I mean, certain level of automation has to be handled by the developer, but most of the things are handled by the cloud, so you don't have to worry about those things. Yeah, those are the things when it comes to cloud native. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, so last I had one question. I'm sure in case you know about it. So, you have any experience or opinion on Dapper or and Tai? You know about it, or have
Okay.
you ever?
When it comes to Dapper, I think this is one of the framework that we are heavily investing. Sorry,
No, no.
I think
That was
Santosh,
not.
there is a bit of delay in the streaming. Yep.
Oh,
Shall I go
okay.
ahead or?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
So there was a question: does I have experience on opinion on Dapper and Tai? So when it comes to Dapper, I think this is one of the recent technology innovation that Microsoft is investing a lot on. For open source developers who are
Mm-hmm.
trying to build cloud native applications with Kubernetes, or if they want to use Kubernetes as an environment to run applications using any platform or any tools. I think this is one of the framework that we are heavily investing on. So I think this is open source again. If you want to explore more on the features, I think we have a recent release that happened in the last month, so you can go and explore. And on the project I, this is one of the announcement that came from the .NET, recent conference. So project I makes you to build applications, microservice applications with the single command, so that you can have the entire thing automated or generated through that particular command, so that you can focus on building that particular feature. So those are the two things that I wanted to answer on the questions that is asked by Nelson. Yeah, probably I
Uh,
can give more insights on these particular questions in the chat by providing the links, but this is what I have known of.
sure, sure. I mean,
I hope
you
I.
can yeah, Yeah,
Yep.
you can share the link. I will just add it into description so people can refer it.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Thanks for answering that. So let's move on to the next question. So when it comes to building cloud native apps, so what are the key components, and can you explain what when to choose what on maybe Azure or any cloud providers?
I think it's a great question, right? I think most of the developers used to ask this question, and also most of the customers have this question in mind because each of the cloud offers more than 100 plus
Yeah.
services on their, on their environment. So I would like to highlight three key components, but there are many other components as well in
Mm-hmm.
terms of cloud native. One is containers, and the other one is serverless. I think which is very famous among developers, and the last one is Kubernetes. So if you
Oh,
see more than 70% of the backend developers, they will have applications running on Kubernetes by end of uh, you know 2020. So that is one of the recent
wow.
fact that I came across. And first one on container, right? A container is a lightweight standalone executable package. It's a piece of software that includes everything that is needed to run your application, which includes code, runtime, system tools, and settings, so that you can package everything as a one, so that you can run your application on in any environment. So in general, container benefits can be seen from two perspective for developers and for operations teams. With containers, developers will be able to build features in quick time with agile manner, which gives a head start in developing containers by utilizing the ready-made boilerplates so that you can download, install, and get started with the development. For the
Mm-hmm.
operations teams, applications can be shipped and run in a production environment exactly the same way that you run in a develop environment. So that
Right.
this is one of the hassles that I came in the when I was a developer, so that you don't have to complain. It works on my machine. So containers provide that
Always.
feasibility, and yeah, and it is quite cost effective, right? So that you don't have to always install OS, because it is
Yeah.
handled by the since you're packaging, it's handled by that. Since they don't require separate operating system, containers use those resources. So containers also offer the possibility of horizontal scaling, so meaning that you can add more identical containers within a cluster to scale out based on the demand that you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is on the serverless, which is one of my favorite area. I think most of the developers, open source developers, love to say so, which offers a ways to scale your application where you don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure. So you don't have access to the VMs or the infrastructure that is running your application, and you don't get to see what is running from the cloud vendor side. And it provides a lot of business values, right? Serverless compute is a fully managed service. There are a lot of serverless options available across different vendors, something which developers use more frequently, such as AWS Lambda, Azure Functions, and then Google Cloud Function. If you really
Mm-hmm.
look at how it works, operating systems and framework patching is performed by the cloud vendor, and there is zero administrative task that you need to do in order to run your application. So you can deploy a code in the form of a function, and it runs so that
Right.
you can focus on adding more features, right? Your
Right.
code runs within seconds and quickly scales whenever whenever there is an increase in demand. Say the Black Friday is coming right next week, so there will be huge number of requests that will be
Mm-hmm.
hitting your servers. In order to scale out, you can use some Azure functions based on the demand. In order to cater those requests,
Right.
serverless compute reacts to events, which means that in real time to events and triggers. So whenever you need, say for example, whenever you upload an image and it needs to get resized, so you don't have to write the end-to-end code for that, right? You will just upload that image to any of the storage. You can use Azure storage or S3 storage on AWS, and then it will trigger a Lambda function or Azure function that will have the resizing logic, and then you can store the data in NoSQL data. So this how it simplifies the process of writing applications in a quicker manner. So you can add more features quickly, and on the cost is also there is an added advantage, because the
Mm-hmm.
billing is typically calculated on the number of function calls and the code execution time and the memory used. So you don't have to
Okay.
worry about the underlying service. You are paying for what you use, right? And the final one, which I talked about, Kubernetes, which is a platform to manage and scale applications made of containers. So it acts as an orchestrator to run your workloads across different environments. in the way you need. So when I say orchestrator, I think everyone must be watching IPL, right? I'm a fan of IPL, Indian Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is one of the cricketing event that happens every year. So in one of those recent matches, if you see, Bravo from CSK got injured, right? And there was no
Mm-hmm.
one to bowl the final over. Then captain brought up some other replacement for to replace the Bravos over. So you can take the similar example. Similar way, each of the players can be considered as a containers, and when something happens to one container or pod, so that other container will take over. So it will get replaced by other container, so that you don't have to worry about scaling. So there will be a
Mm-hmm.
master node who will be orchestrating this, right? So in this case, you can take master node as the coach or the captain who is orchestrating the team to
Mm-hmm.
play up to their skills levels, right? So you can relate to that particular example if you are a beginner on Kubernetes. And then Kubernetes does a lot of operations when it comes to automated scheduling by providing an automated scheduler that helps in launching the container on cluster nodes, and then it provides self-healing, which supports rescheduling and then replacement of nodes, and also restarting the dead containers so that it will be available to serve those users whenever there is a downtime. And then
Oh.
automated rollouts and rollbacks. This is one of the important feature which is provided by the Kubernetes. So it supports rollback for system in case of failure, so that you can roll back to the immediate, the previous stage, or if you want to bring up a new environment, you can do that. And then final thing on the scaling, it supports horizontal scaling as well as vertical scaling. It can scale up and down based on the resources that is required. Also, it can be automated based on the CPU usage as well. So if the CPU usage goes high, then you can increase the number of
Mm-hmm.
resources. And finally, on the service discovery and load balancing, it uses unique IPs and DNS named to containers, which help in identifying different containers across the different environments. So these are some of the services provided by Kubernetes. Since you asked about the services that you can leverage on Azure, I would like to talk about something on Azure as well. On
Mm-hmm.
containers, we have some service named Azure Container Registry, which is a managed private Docker registry service based
Mm-hmm.
on open source Docker Registry 2.0. It helps you to create and maintain Azure Container Registries to manage your private Docker containers and
Okay.
related artifacts, so that you can use familiar CLI tools to pull those images and then deploy on Kubernetes. Say if you want to run these container images quickly, you can look into something called Azure Container Instances, which is a solution for any scenario that can operate on isolate containers, including simple applications such as task automation and build jobs. So you can say that container instances might not be the suitable solution for all the containerist workload, but it can be the best option when you need to run short-lived operations
Mm-hmm.
across different environments, or in case of things like burst of additional work that you need to perform. On the third point, which you talked about, which I talked about, managed Kubernetes on Azure, which helps with actions like auto scaling, and also it helps with provides the feasibility to provide security through the Azure portal. When it comes to self-healing, it can be done through pools, and it provides monitoring capabilities through some of the monitoring services which are available on Azure, such as App Insights. Again,
Ah.
AKS is simplifying the deployment, management, and operations on Kubernetes. Lots of things that service is offering, which I don't want to talk right now. But if I have to give insights on how you can, simply deploy a solution on Azure, probably I will show this particular resource which you can leverage if you are a developer. So this is one of the resources that we usually share with partners. This is I think you can see the screen, right? So
Yeah. 1 second. I'm just adding it to stream.
can you see the screen?
It's just getting loaded.
Hello.
I think it's getting loaded. I think due to I think some problem with the internet. Looks like, is it slow internet or I'm not sure what. Let me just remove and add it again.
All right.
Okay. Somehow. Let me try again. Hmm. It's not getting loaded.
Can you see it?
No. Yeah, now I can. Now we can see it.
All right. I think this is a very good reference which you could use
Mm-hmm.
if you are very new to Azure. Again, this is not applicable in all the scenarios, but you need
Mm-hmm.
to have a holistic view on considering all the factors when you are deploying or making a decision, right? So I have divided into this particular diagram into two components just to make things easier, which you can see from here, right? One half denotes the migration scenario which I talked about, and the other half denotes the cloud native scenario. So let's talk about an application. Say if you are building a visitor management application where I have two-tier architecture where the application is a .NET framework and the
Mm-hmm.
database is on SQL. So as the diagram shows, there are two options which are valid for me, right? I can make use of app service, or I can host it on
Gotcha.
VMs, which is like a
Mm-hmm.
compute engine. So if it's a brownfield application, then yes, it can be containerized, and I can go for any of the containers options, such as running on Kubernetes or running on any of those containerized workloads, right? Azim, if I want to add more capabilities to this visitor management by adding some face recognition for the visitors, we can do authentication, right? Then I
Mm-hmm.
can consider using some of the serverless option by having that face recognition as API using Azure function. And then another scenario would be a company whose development team is very familiar with Docker in the past in terms of open source containers, who are having experience running Kubernetes on-prem. They are building microservice-based architecture and an internal-facing application. Then
Mm-hmm.
they can go for something like AKS, which is a managed Kubernetes solution provided by Azure. Again, this is just a reference that I wanted to bring up. Certainly it depends a lot on the factors when you're making the decision. Again, this depends on individuals and the organization that when you're making a decision, but this you can use as a high level reference that you can leverage in order to build the applications quicker to cloud, which I wanted to bring it up. Yep.
Nice chart. Okay, so there are a few questions. Let's take that. So, a question from Lars: any way to spin up Azure Service Bus locally for testing?
I think there is something called, you can't spin up the Azure Service Bus as of now, but there is something called Storage Explorer, which you can leverage in order to, if you are sending messages to the Service Bus queue, you can see those messages from the local environment, whether that is being reached to the cloud environment. So that is one way, but I'm not sure if there is a local way to test Azure Service Bus locally. But I'm sure that Azure function provides a way to test serverless functions in local environment. Probably I can explore more on this and get back to you with a proper answer, but as far as I know, there's no way to explore service bus locally. Yep.
Okay, so Lars has another question: where is serverless more useful than Kubernetes? So, what are the scenarios?
I think serverless can be considered as an option with Kubernetes as well, because serverless provides a way to add extended features to your existing environment, right? Say if you are hosting on VM, then if you want to add some quick feature rather than spending writing on entire code, one of the thing that I talked about, when you're uploading a image, if you want to resize, you don't have to write the entire
Mm-hmm.
code to take the image and then resizing. You can just simply write a function to do that logic, and then put it as whenever someone uploads a image to storage bucket, it will spin up that function and then you can store it. So you can use serverless as an additional thing to your
Mm-hmm.
existing application. And also you can use serverless as an option with Kubernetes as well, because say if you are if you are deploying applications on Kubernetes, there are certain instances that you don't want to run your applications for a long time, right? There are certain occasions that you need to have short running operations. So there is a way to run serverless functions on Kubernetes. There is some framework called KEDA, which lets you to run your serverless functions on top of Kubernetes. And there is something called virtual kubelets available in Kubernetes, which you can leverage to, extend your Azure functions as a containerized way to run some of the workloads that you want to run on top of Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is recommended for heavy complex operations. Say if you want to have replicated environments to run heavily complex operations such as contain multi containers and also AI models and also IoT operations. These are some of the
Hmm.
ways that you can consider Kubernetes as a deployment option, but serverless can be considered for any of the scenarios if you want to add existing capabilities to your uh, application. So serverless is one of the quickest way to build application rather than, because Kubernetes, when you consider the learning curve, it involves a lot of effort and time, right? I think when you're going to start with Kubernetes, I think you have to spend a lot of effort in learning the concept because it involves millions of concepts if you want to start properly with Kubernetes. But serverless is fairly easy for developers, so that it is easy to start. So those are some of the differentiation that I can bring till now. But if you have more questions, feel free to reach out. Probably I can do that. Yeah.
Cool. So I think he last got his answer. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's move
Thanks.
on to the let's move on to another question. I think we already discussed this. What are the consideration while designing an architecture on cloud? I think that diagram defines that, or is there anything more to cover in this
Yeah,
actually?
I think I showed the decision tree to make
Hmm.
choices for deploying your application. But in general, if you are deploying to any cloud, irrespective of Azure,
Hmm.
if you are deploying on
Yeah.
AWS, there are certain things that you need to consider, right? I
Hmm.
mentioned in the previous question as well. But well, if you think of cloud, you need to design the solution having in mind that about high availability, reliability, elasticity, and also scalability, right? So there are 10 key factors that we provide. Probably I can quickly
Hmm.
go through. So first, you need to assume that everything fails in the same time. So you need to consider designing a solution that can self heal. So one of the scenarios that I talked about, auto healing using Kubernetes. So you need to provide
Hmm.
an environment that can auto heal. So there are ways to achieve. One is using the blue green deployment model, where you
Hmm.
will have two environments and then you will swap based on the request that is coming from different regions. Say if the primary region goes down, then you can switch to the green deployment, which is the secondary region, and then you can swap. And there is something called canary deployment, which you can consider as well, which I explained in the previous slide. And then second point is avoid single points of failure. So most of the things that we don't consider is that when we have single point of failure, such as database, which is hugely impacting your business, right? What if the
Yeah.
database goes down? So you need to make things redundant. So you don't have to think much about the cost that is involving, but you need to serve your customer 24/7, right? So you need to make
Exactly.
things redundant. So always thinks about having a primary region as well as secondary region, and then don't rely on the other components. Say there are customers building querying data, right, which is depend on another database. Say what if the other database goes down? So don't rely on third party APIs or third party applications or other components. You need to handle those things, minimize the coordination. That's the whole point about. And the fourth point is design to scale out. So when it comes to cloud, I think this is one of the offer that is provided by the cloud. So you need to leverage that, right? So you need to design prior with the right size. There are people who are using large infrastructure in order to deploy small applications. So start with something small and make your application scalable by adding more resources. So that is one of the factor that you need to consider. And the cloud is powered by real servers, so you have the capability to scale whenever you want. So make sure you are partitioning the data, make sure you are choosing the correct limits on those services. And on the sixth point, there are instances that developers are being called at 3 a.m. in the morning. So if you want to
Yeah.
avoid that, you need to set right practices such as monitoring, such as alerts with the help of admin. So you can do that with cloud services that are available. And on the seventh point, use managed services as soon as possible. So if you have decided to go ahead with one cloud vendor, make sure to use some of the managed services, because you are
Hmm.
giving the responsibilities to the cloud vendor so that you can avoid some of the automation things that you need to do, right? And on the eighth point, you need to choose the right data store for in order to store your data. So there are instances people choosing NoSQL data to be stored on SQL, and then relational data to be stored on NoSQL. So you need to choose the right data store whenever you are making the decision. And then ninth point, design for evolution. So you need to always design for something that can be evolved by the timeline. I mean, whenever you are making decisions which
Mhm.
adhere to the business as well. And finally, it's not a recommendation, but it's all about business, right? It's all about making money. So you need to do what are the things that are right, which can make revenue for your, for your company. So build the things that are needed by your business. So that is one of the important key factor that you need to consider. So these are some of the things that you need to consider.
Wow. Wow, wow. I mean, when you said 3 a.m., right? So it reminded me one of the instances where we had to actually go to office at 2 a.m. because one of the server was deleted. And the server guy was like, I thought this server is not getting used. And that was a live server which had database. So,
I think one of my experience being as a developer, right, when I joined the first developer job, I deleted the production environment by running a,
wow.
instead of truncate table, I deleted the entire table.
Oh,
So that is one of the experience that I had. And then somehow I didn't lose the job, but that's a fortunate thing that happened so that I can explore my failures in the beginning stage of my career, which I tend not to do it while I'm
yeah,
at my
exactly.
company. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, where I can look for the references for the thing you mentioned, right?
Yeah, I think probably I will share some of the links
Mm,
that you can leverage when you're
yeah,
starting your journey with Azure. Let me share the screen again.
yeah, one second. Yeah, it's already added. Yeah, cool. And yeah.
So, I mean, if you're a beginner on Azure, I will cover 2 points, right? One is on the reference architecture that you can leverage to building, applications to cloud. So there are, if you search for Azure Architecture Center, this is available for all cloud vendors as well. So Google provides their best architecture references. AWS provides the best architecture references. On Azure, we are providing on each of the workloads. You can see analytics, blockchain, compute. So this is one of the good place that you can leverage some of the resources. Say if you want to build on Kubernetes, then you can search for Kubernetes, and then this is an example of building real time or machine learning models using Kubernetes as an environment. So there are similar to that. We are providing some of the reference architecture, and also
Mm,
I will cover one point or other point that we can that beginners can leverage. So there is a cool one-stop shop available, which is called the aka.mslearn. So you can just type aka.mslearn. You will be redirected to this particular URL. They are providing cool features, right? So if you are an administrator, if you are a AI engineer, if you are a data engineer, and if you are a student also, you can pick this path, and then you will be provided with set of courses that you need to go through in order to attain that beginner level introduction to Microsoft Azure. So these are some of the references that you can leverage if you're a beginner on Azure. Yeah.
that's cool. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So, what is the thing about DevOps? Why it is so important in building cloud native apps? So, what do you think?
Okay, I think I talked about different scenarios of building applications, but
Yeah.
these cloud native applications are incomplete if you don't have DevOps practices in an organization, right?
Right.
Let me explain in a simple analogy using one of the game that we used to play when we were kids, right? Imagine you and your friends are going to play a telephone game. I don't know whether if you're
Hmm.
familiar with that, but I have played this game a lot of time, and it's really fun, right? So this game is about a person A. Say, if I'm the person A telling something to person B, and then person B repeats what I told to person A, and it continues, right? So at the end of the day, the end person has to deliver what the person A has told. So there are a lot of cool things that gets transmitted, and finally, the last person, used to share some unrelevant things. So this is
Ah,
very
okay.
similar to yeah, this is very similar to DevOps that I wanted to explain. This explain how the flow of information in large teams while building software, right? If I have to explain relating to an IT organization without DevOps, where developers and operations teams acting as silos. So this happened in many of
Mhm.
my previous organizations where we don't sync up with each other, right? We work as silos. So DevOps is like a telephone game where everybody understands each other what they have to do, and acts accordingly in order to deliver something quickly. The most important requirement here is that clear and transparent communication between the team members. So it can begin with a definition of the required documentation when you are building the software, and then it could include the right practices when you're building the software, and it can go to the level of extent, integrating logging and the security policies within your application in order to get the telemetries from your customer environment. And there are thousands number of definitions for DevOps. They tend to focus on narrow disciplines and technologies, but if I have to give one definition, I will go with this famous Persian's definition, who is my guru of DevOps. I think it's for many, who is Donovan Brown. As he states, DevOps is the union of people, process, and the products, right? Which enables the continuous delivery and deliver value to your end customers. So every DevOps decision has three elements: people, process, and the products, which you use to drive these things quickly to the end customers. Where culture is about bringing everyone together in a collaborative fashion. So there are different tools provides that, such as you can use communications tools, you can use project management tools to make share things more easily, have the common goals, and focus on identifying the areas of improvement. And finally, and the second thing is about the process, which makes you to increase the efficiency and also streamline the feedback which is
Right.
from the customers, and also to eliminate the waste from your software code, right? And finally, the tools which supports the process and facilitate the continuous feedback and experimentation with your customer, so that you can deliver something quickly to the market. So if I have to highlight, DevOps is a culture. It's not a role or definition that I wanted to highlight. The whole company need to be doing DevOps to make it to work. So if you are a developer, you need to take the responsibility of everything, using automation, using implement the writing tool, using best practices. So all these things you need to consider. So when you ask about the benefits, it drives the speed and the agility to deliver software quickly. So back in 2011, I think when I was a junior developer, right, I had the experience of deploying an application to an environment 47 times. I think if I do that right now, I will be kicked out of any of the company, right? So if having the right practices such as DevOps, you should be in a position to deploy quicker in quick
Yeah.
time based on the customer request. So I think we are hearing a lot of things, right? Such as deployment on Friday, which scares most of the developers. I think
Right.
you can get rid of all these myths if you're following the right practices. GitHub is a great example for following DevOps. They are deploying 10 times to a production environment. I mean, you need to be able to deploy things quicker to the production environment whenever you need. So even if you take Azure, we are deploying million times per day each of the services. So these are some of the benefits that DevOps provides to any customers or developers. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. So next question is more about data confidentiality. So, do you think cloud computing can bring security related issues?
I think this question we discussed in the second point that you
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I missed that. And yeah, even actually, I told you about this scenario, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool. So let's take some question if we have any. So Sulekha has questioned someone new to cloud, which public cloud has better opportunities for career prospect.
I think this is a great question. I don't want to be biased being a Microsoft
Yeah,
employee,
cool.
but if I have to correct, I think when I started my career as a developer, right, I started with GCP. I think that is one of the
Mhm.
earlier days. GCP was, starting their cloud journey. And so I spent nearly 2 years by building a analytics tool on GCP by leveraging, some of the data services that is provided by GCP, starting with BigQuery. So I
Mhm.
was one of the early users of BigQuery. If you search on Stack Overflow, I used to pick those questions on BigQuery, and then I moved to AWS, where I built on where I had the practice of building some of the startup applications using AWS, where I got the knowledge of AWS Lambda and then some of the services that they have, right? And finally, last 3 years, I continue to be a developer on Azure and also helping the partners and customers on Azure. But if you are starting your journey as a developer who is focusing on cloud, my recommendation is to focus on one cloud at the beginning. Probably when it comes to basic concepts, you need to understand the basic concepts thoroughly, which is common across all the cloud vendors, right? There is nothing magic that is provided by each of the vendor. So you need to understand what is the importance of cloud, and what are the different ways that each of the cloud vendors is offering their services. Some of the things that I talked about, cloud native, so Kubernetes, serverless, and then DevOps. So what are the right tools provided by each of these vendor, and then what are the best practices that you need to have on each of those vendor, and then you probably can pick one cloud as a case study for your career, so that you can explore more on that particular cloud and then become an expert on that particular area, right? So I would recommend you to start with any of the cloud option that is available, and then be an expert on that particular cloud. That would help a lot in your career,
Mm-hmm.
because you will get to know, from the experience wise. I think it will help you to become a better matured cloud advocate in any of those scenarios. And other recommendation is, if you are building your skills on particular cloud, make sure to go through the certification, because those will have high values, right? So if you are doing on Azure, I would recommend to start with Azure Fundamentals, which is AZ 900, and then you can go to AZ 204 if you are a developer. If you are an administrator, you can go for AZ 104, and then you can go for an architect level, which is AZ 303, and things like that. So there are different different certifications available on different options that you want to specialize, starting with DevOps, security, and things like that. So choose one cloud and then be an expert on that particular cloud. So I hope I answered your question, but if you need more details, probably I can, support you on that. Yeah.
It's cool. I mean, pretty great explanation. Okay, so so last, I think this is our last question probably. Oh
Yep.
no, we have one more question after this. So can we talk about some latest announcements from Microsoft around Dev and Azure ecosystems, if you have any?
Yep. I think one of the recent thing that I shared with developers, probably I can pull up the slides.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a second. So as Microsoft Ignite 2020 was held on online on September 22nd. There were various announcements related to Azure, right? Even as a Microsoft employee, we have become very difficult to catch up with Azure updates. It can be said that Azure is constantly evolving day by day, right? So I wanted to share some of the important updates related to app development and tools that you can leverage as a developer to build and deploy solutions quicker to the cloud. Let's start with some of the announcement around DevOps. So if you are familiar with GitHub and if you are a fan of GitHub, I think you should explore this particular feature, GitHub Actions, which allows you to configure your CI/CD pipeline based on your GitHub repository, and then you can have automated builds, tests, and deployments triggered by the changes that you make on your source code. At the time of Ignite, I think GitHub Actions was announced back in March, but in the recent time there were announcement around GitHub Actions for Azure, such as you can integrate Azure policies. So when you are deploying from GitHub to Azure, you can integrate some policies that you can tightly integrate with your source code, and then ARM deployment action. So if you are automating some of the deployments on cloud, say if you want to replicate one of your infrastructure uh, uh, in another environment, then you can use the ARM templates in the form of JSON. Then you can replicate the same environment. So, which is supported on GitHub Actions as well. And then finally, the container scanning. So, if you are containerizing your application, and then you can do the code scanning so that it will give out if there are any vulnerabilities that is happening on your container images, so that you will get to know those vulnerabilities before deploying your applications to cloud. So I will show a repo on my GitHub Actions for those who are new. Probably you can explore more on this. Let me pull up that one. I don't know. Yep. So this is one of the Angular application that I built a long time back in order to demonstrate GitHub Actions, right? So if you go to your repository, you will be able to see this particular folder, which is the GitHub Actions workflow, where you will have your CI/CD pipeline in order to automate your deployment. So you can set up your new workflow if you need, and then you can automate your workflow using this particular YAML. So that is one way. And if you go to, I don't want to set up the actions right now, but if you go to actions, you will be able to see what happened in the history, right? So I can see that every day GitHub is doing automated deployment because there are some security checks happening on my code, and you can see the failures. But in the past, I was able to successfully deploy this particular application to cloud. So it makes your life easier. So whenever you commit something, it will spin up, there's a pipeline using YAML code and then deploy your solutions to Azure. And on the code scanning, on the compliance, there are some of the extensions that you can leverage. One of the things that I mentioned about ARM template. So you can install this extension and automate your deployment using the ARM template. And there are extensions for code scanning as well, which you can leverage to do the container scanning if you are deploying your application as a container image. This action help you to add additional checks to secure your Docker images before even you are building the CI/CD pipelines in order to deploy your solution. So this is one of the cool feature that was announced. And on the second thing which I wanted to highlight, probably I will jump into that. Uh, yeah, the next one we are going to discuss is on the GitHub code spaces. So if you have not heard before, this is an online development environment that you can leverage, hosted by GitHub and powered by Visual Studio Code, which allows you to develop in cloud, right? I think one of the cool feature for developers in order to, submit pull requests, fix code issues on mobile, you can just navigate to code spaces and start building your applications on the fly. And it includes everything you need to develop for a specific repository, including a text editor, as you can see, and then you have the syntax highlighting feature, auto complete feature, and then terminal. You will be able to see in the demo that I will be showing, and then you can run GitHub commands on the terminal, and then you can install the GitHub extension that you are leveraging in your local environment, that will be brought to cloud so that you can leverage the same extension. One of the highlighting features is that it allows the developers to bring their extension to the cloud so that they don't have to reinstall everything. So a few of the scenarios that you can consider code spaces is that, say, if you're running workshops for your end customers, you can spin multiple code spaces and then provide as a lab environment for your end users so that they don't have to set up any environment. They can start immediately building the things they want. So that is one of the scenario that I wanted to highlight. And if I have to demo code spaces, so right now I am connected to one of the application that I demonstrated. Probably it will take few minutes to load my environment, but the idea is that you will be able to see the code in screen, and then you will be able to make the changes. You can commit so that it will run the CI/CD pipeline and then deploy the solutions to cloud. So that is on the second announcement which I wanted to highlight. And if I go to the next one, I think this is one of the important feature if you are a fan of Kubernetes. So essentially, there are three updates on Azure Kubernetes Service which was announced in the Ignite 2021. One is on the AK stop and start cluster feature, which is now available in preview, which allows the customers to completely pause the AK's cluster so that they can, stop wasting the compute resources. This feature allows cluster configurations in place so that they can pick up from where they left, right? And the general availability of Azure policy add-on feature, which is the second point, which enables the customers to audit the resources and then enforce the policies on Kubernetes resources. So this means that customers can set their own policies before the ARM templates, and then they can have the compliance across the pods or ingress controller or namespaces and different Kubernetes resources. The next is announcement, which is very impactful among developers, which is known as the bridge to Kubernetes. I think if you're a fan of debugging a remote environment, I think if you have heard of DevSpace extension, which allows the developers to develop applications, multi-containerized applications or microservices applications without connecting to the cloud environment. You can bring the dependencies to your local environment from cloud and then fix the bugs and then deploy immediately. So this feature was announced as bridge to Kubernetes. So microservice applications are compressed of many services. So developers always had the complexity of fixing bugs. So you can leverage this bridge to Kubernetes in order to debug the cloud environment quickly and then fix the bugs as soon as possible. So that is one of the important highlight. And this is something for Java developers, which is called the Azure Sprint Cloud. It is defined as open source library and a collection of tools for quickly deploying the Java Spring Boot framework based applications to cloud. It is a fully managed service for Spring Boot microservices application, which is generally available on September 2nd. So it makes the developers to easily deploy Spring Boot microservice applications to Azure with zero code changes. It manages the infrastructure of Spring Cloud applications so that developers can focus on their code. Also, it provides the lifecycle management using monitoring, diagnostics, and the configuration management. Also, it provides the CI/CD integrations with GitHub and all the tools you can see, so that you can have the blue-green deployment in order to have the zero downtime, so that you can build things quicker to the customers. And the final thing on the .NET, I think most of you are .NET fan, and .NET is being the number one loud framework among developers. I don't know how many people gathered here who actually uses .NET. I'm a big fan of .NET in the past, and it's a big ecosystem for Microsoft users as well, right? Until now, .NET framework has been a framework for creating Windows-based application until the announcements of .NET Core. But if you see that right now you have the flexibility to build applications starting with desktop, also on cloud, mobile, gaming, IoT, using something called .NET Core. So it offers different types of applications in many ways. .NET framework is not only for Windows platform, but we can now use .NET Core for building applications that are running on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. And with the development of open source integrations in progress, the momentum of .NET ecosystem has increased significantly. So you can see the number of figures. If you're an open source fan, you should be loving this, right? You can see some of the facts. I think which would be highlighting many of the .NET features that was released in the recent time. And finally, as a topic, I want to bring up some of the announcement which was announced last week. In fact, so we have released something called .NET 5, which came out as a release candidate, which is generally available. And last week we got the official announcement in the .NET Conf. Currently, you can develop various applications using C# with .NET Framework, .NET Core, and then Xamarin. But unfortunately, the development tools SDKs are completely different, right? So you can use this particular .NET 5 to build any type of applications. So the .NET 5 integrates .NET Core, Xamarin, and legacy .NET Framework into one .NET. So that is the whole idea. I think this was a highlighting announcement among a lot of developers, because this has been a huge transformation in Microsoft journey as well, back in when we started with .NET back in 2000. So I think this was welcomed by most of the developers. So it allows you to develop various type of applications, and then you can see it has dramatically improved the performance over the old .NET framework. So the performance is very important factor in when you're building applications to cloud. I think we have fixed that for developers with the recent announcement, which you can see from here. And finally, one of the questions I got on the chat, it's on the project side. Yeah. So it is one of my favorite announcements from the .NET Conf. So Project I is a cool tool that makes for developers for developing, testing, and deploying microservices and distributed application feature. So Project I makes it easier to get up to the cloud with one command, with all of the configuration that you need for Docker and Kubernetes. So those are the different things that I wanted to quickly share today.
That's cool. Lots of great announcement. Looks like I have to start .NET again. Anyway, so Last has this question: will those actions support Project Bicep?
Okay, probably I don't know the answer for the question because I have not explore much on the projectile. Is it on the projectile? If I read the
No,
question.
it was Project Bicep.
Okay. Oh, okay. Sorry. Oh, Project Bicep is something that that we came up from the uh, Ignite announcement, if you have heard of. So Project I is if you're using Terraform right now for deploying to Kubernetes or any of the open source tools that you're leveraging. Project I is something that you can explore using the ARM way of deployment. So there are different actions being built by. I hope you can see the screen, right?
No, I think you need to share it again.
Okay, sorry. I think my camera went off. Yeah, I don't have anything to share. Probably, yeah. Since yeah, uh,
Bicep.
project Bicep, yeah, allows in order to automate your deployment process easier. It follows the ARM way to deploy the resources across multiple environments. So when it comes to actions, there are few actions are being supported right now. I think if you're an open source fan, you can contribute to that as well. If you want to support on Bicep, you can open the repository which is available for any developers, and then you can create a pull request. If you see particular action that needs to be supported, then you can request that feature as well. So I will list down the list of actions that are being supported so that you can explore. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I think a lot of great announcements are also coming at GitHub Universe, which is supposed to happen, right?
Yep.
2020.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so last question: what are the ways to get started with Azure? I mean, you already shared one. I think that was the one. That is the
Yeah, that's
you already
that's the
shared
one I
results.
wanted to share. Yeah, but
Yeah.
apart from the ak.ms learn, I think I
Mm-hmm.
would highly recommend we have MSD and channel, right? So there is channel 9, and also we are every week there is a new video being released from something called as Azure Friday.
Okay.
So that you can leverage some of the new announcement that is coming. And also, if you go to Azure website, you will be able to see a list of services that we have and what are the updates that are coming on each of those services. So that is one of the important thing that you can leverage. And also, I would recommend to subscribe to our Microsoft Azure channel, YouTube channel, so that you will get to see all the events and also the great speakers from Microsoft, from the engineering team, from the COP who will be sharing the knowledge. And also, if you're a community fan, make sure to follow Dev Advocates on Azure team, and also make sure to follow me as well, so that you can get to know some of the announcement. Yes, I'm marketing
Yeah.
myself, but
Yeah.
probably I used to share a lot of stuff on Azure as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. That's for sure. I mean, if you're not following Saji, just go ahead and follow him on Twitter. So his Twitter handle is available here. Uh, okay. I think we are done, and we allow some. I mean, in case you have anything to promote on our channel, you can go ahead and do that. So anything to promote?
I don't have anything to promote. Probably, if you want to interact with me, feel free to DM me on any of those mediums. And I love to mentor others, right? Because one of the chance that I didn't have in the past was I didn't have any mentor until I joined Microsoft. Right now, I have very good mentors. So all these careers, I was, exploring my own things, which I had to spend most of the time in learning
Yeah.
things on my own. But there are a lot of amazing mentors and also a lot of mediums that you can reach out to. So I would love to give my support to other developers who want to get started on cloud or even web applications. So you can always reach out to me. And something that I wanted to highlight is that if you are a developer, you need to contribute back to the community. So start doing that. That is one of the key thing that we missed, right? So you need to give back to back to the community. It's not about being expert on something, it's about sharing what you know to others. So
Yeah.
that is one of the key point that I wanted to share in this opportunity. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Okay. So cool. So we are done. I mean, I don't think so. Okay.
I think I have
He,
taken extra time, 45
yeah. No,
minutes. I
it's.
hope that's
I
fine. Yeah.
mean, that's absolutely fine. We love to call speakers who are actually ready to spend some extra time. So what is your role at Microsoft, Saji? So last add this question.
I think I'm working as a cloud solution architect. So, as a cloud solution architect from the APAC tech team, what we usually do is help ISVs across our region to build solutions with Microsoft Azure. So, when they have requirements on moving their applications to cloud, so I mainly closely work with ISVs, independent software vendors. So, if they
Mm-hmm.
have building new applications which they want to take it to cloud, so we provide the best practices, architecture guidance. We used to evangelize some of the new services and also provide the architecture validation so that they can take their applications quickly. And also we support customers in some cases as well. During the COVID times, there are some instances where we need to support end customers. So uh, I mean, in Sri Lanka we had a scenario where we need to take one of the um, tea auction, which used to happen 150 years old tea auction, right? Which used to happen manually. And then with the help of Azure, we were able to take that to cloud and automate the whole thing within 7 days. So these are some of the quick things that we were able to achieve using cloud. So in those kind of scenarios, we used to engage and help those customers and partners. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
regular role. But apart from that, I used to be a subject matter expert on some of the services on Azure. So you can take Cosmos DB, you can take AKS. So I support partners who have special deep dive experience, who needs deep dive architecture guidance on AKS. So Cosmos DB, and building application modernization. Say if they want to choose what are the services that they can leverage. So these are my key areas, and also DevOps. So these are my regular day-to-day jobs. But I love to contribute back to the community, right? So I write blogs, and also I am among the top 50 blogs on Azure. So you can read about some of the cool things that we are doing with Microsoft. So that's my day-to-day job. Yeah.
That's cool. I think one more question from Lars. So SSL for ARM, I mean, is it available?
Yeah, SSL for ARM, I think this is one of the questions that we get when you're deploying applications for Kubernetes, and also, when you're deploying applications using app service, if you're using ARM template. This is currently supported. So if you are leveraging, application gateway, uh, so it depends on where you want to terminate SSL, right? So there are ways to achieve using ARM templates, which is possible. So I don't know what is the scenario, because it says SSL for ARM, but it is supported. So we need to
Ah, cool.
explore what is the requirement that you have. Then I should be able to guide you in the correct manner. I hope I
Cool.
answered the question. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sachi. I mean, thanks for actually joining us. It was like really great session. Uh, I mean, okay, it was related to, I think, GitHub Action support Bicep DSL for RM. So will GitHub Actions support Bicep DSL for ARM? I'm not sure what the question is.
Yeah, I think this is on the GitHub Actions. I think I'm not sure whether that support is provided right now, but I can explore more on that and then get back to you.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, let's come back again, and thanks for joining us, Saji. I mean, it was really great session. I'm sure I have learned lot of things which I didn't knew about cloud, and I think it will be really useful for the viewers who will be watching us later on. So
All
thanks a
right.
lot. Thanks a lot for joining. Yep.
Before finishing up, I think thanks for having me, Santosh, and for those audience who were listening to me, thank you very much for being a nice audience. And there were a lot of questions that I got right. Thanks for those questions as well. You can always reach out to me. And Santosh, you have been inspiration for most of the developers. So keep contributing, back to the community, and I love your work. So wish you all the best in whatever you are doing. And soon we will catch up again, and look forward to having one more session with you in the coming years.
Sure.
Probably we can meet in India soon. Yep. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Yeah. And okay, so on closing notes, I'll just announce the next episode. So next episode, we will be having Natalia Venito, who is Google developer expert for Angular, and she works for Adobe. And then we will also have another speaker, Anchal Bhandari. I think Saji knows Anchal because we were together in Sri Lanka. And it will be more about for women, how they can actually grow their career in tech. And there will be few experiences. I think they will share also their own experience, how they grew up in the ladder in the technology, and their own experiences from the industry. So I am sure it will be very useful for all the movements in the tech. And if you can also suggest some movements to join, that will be really great. So we'll be having the same on next Friday, same time, 10 p.m. IST. And yep, that's it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.